You're listening to the Bloodshed Baddies.
Hi, I'm Lex.
And I'm Sam.
And we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
Hello, baddies. Welcome back.
What up, what up, what up?
So, Lex, 'tis the Lenten season upon us. If you are Catholic or grew up Catholic, you know what we're talking about. Basically, Lent is like before Easter, and then you're supposed to give something up or something like that. Because Jesus sacrificed in the desert, right?
Yeah.
So I have been pretty stressed out lately. You know, my life has some stressful stuff coming soonish into the
Yes.
sphere. So I'm really, when I get in those stressful modes, I oftentimes, like, that's when my thoughts spiral or like I start negatively thinking about myself. So I thought of a good one this year that I think you would approve. Every time I think bad about myself, like, oh, you look bad today or something like that, I have to say, no, you don't. And then give myself 3 compliments.
That's amazing. It's also, in my therapy talk terms, is called reappraisals. So it's when you reappraise a thought with something that's more true.
Ooh.
And it doesn't always have to be, which was helpful for me. It doesn't always have to be like, I look bad today. Let me reappraise that to, no, you look good today. But it can be like, if you really can't find anything good about yourself, it could be, I look bad today, but my body allows me to do what I want to get done today.
Ooh, I love that because that makes me feel a little bit better too, because you can still feel like you look bad. So that's nice too. I was going to ask you what you do when you get in situations like that, because I mean, come on, we all do. We're human. So what are things that you do?
Yeah, I definitely use my reappraisals a lot. My old therapist would be so friggin' proud of me for saying this word because I used to be like, no, I'm not doing that. And I think like mine are typically about my body or not being good enough at something or like this is too hard. So I think I always try to look for like a fact because a lot of times we don't realize that like feelings and spiraling like that, those are thoughts, but thoughts aren't facts.
I like that.
So, like, I'm not good enough. I'll never be able to get this job done. Okay, but yesterday I made sure that I got X, Y, and Z done at work and I did it. So I can do it again today.
I love that. And I like that there's a name to it. I didn't know that there was a name. I feel kind of cool that I can be like, oh, I'm saying my reappraisals now.
Yeah.
I also wanted to give a big shout out to you because we kind of have added to the socials and all of that. And I know we usually say this at the end, but I was wondering if you wanted to plug all our new stuff, Lex, before we get started.
Yes. So originally we were just on Instagram while we were getting this started to give me just like one place that I had to worry about because neither of us are marketing people. Neither of us are
No.
huge social media people. We don't understand how to get stuff out there. So I started with Instagram, but now we also have a Facebook. We are also Bloodshed Baddies on Facebook. And we have a TikTok. We are Bloodshed Baddies on TikTok. And then we also joined a streaming platform. So we are on Podbean. And if you want to check us out on Podbean, we are bloodshedbaddies.podbean.com.
Yeah, so if you could all give us a follow if you have those platforms on all those platforms, that would be so fantastic. And don't forget to also give us a follow on any streaming service that you listen to us, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, we're on now, iHeart. That really
We
helps us
are on
out as
YouTube. I
well.
forgot that.
Ooh, YouTube. And
Yeah.
also, last thing I wanted to bring up, and I know again, we usually say this at the end, but if you have any suggestions, which people have been, email us, please, bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com. And if you have any stories, like true crime related, that you want to tell us, but it doesn't have to be murder, then you should share those as well.
All right. Should we get into the case today?
I'm actually stressed about your case today, Lex.
It's a rough one. I do want to put a trigger warning right up front. There is a lot of sexual assault in this case. A
Ugh.
lot. I don't go into detail. I just say sexual assault because I don't think that detail is needed, but it is a lot. So if that is something that you're not comfortable with, I would probably skip this one.
We won't hold it against you because it's a heavy topic.
Are you ready to get into it?
I guess I have to be.
So we are actually going to Canada for this case.
Hey,
And we are getting in our time machine and going back to the 1980s.
ooh, neon and big hair.
Yep. On November 17th, 1988, the Metropolitan Toronto Police created a task force committed to finding the Scarborough rapist.
Ugh.
There were a series of rapes or attempted rapes that were occurring near Scarborough. Over what would end up being a 5-year period, over 24 rapes or attempted rapes were committed. The Scarborough rapist targeted young women in their teens or early 20s. He would threaten the woman about going to the police, verbally abuse them, and even beat them.
Oh my.
Most of the attacks happened outdoors. They had no leads until 2 years after the task force was created. And they actually had a victim who was able to describe the attacker to a sketch artist, and the portrait was sent out.
I can't imagine how scary it would be living in that time, whether you are a young girl or that's a sister or a daughter or a friend. And the attacks happen outside. Everyone's probably inside scared. That's terrifying. And it happened for at least 7 years, it sounds like, which is also terrifying.
Meanwhile, the police were about to have another issue on their hands. On June 29th, 1991, which was like 6 days after I was born.
Lexi was just born, little baby Lex.
I was a little baby in the hospital. Well, I probably wasn't in the hospital at that time. I was probably home, but whatever. So on June 29th, 1991, some people were fishing on Lake Gibson. They came across some concrete blocks that had arms, legs, feet, and a head in them. The next day, a torso was found in the water.
The visual that is visualizing in my head is not good.
Remains were identified as 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy.
14.
She had been reported missing on June 15th.
Oh my God. That's a nightmare.
9 months later, on April 30th, 1992, a body was found in a ditch on the side of the rural road. Her head was shaved.
Ooh.
And her face was beaten.
Oh.
She did have a very identifiable injury, though. She was missing the tip of her pinky finger from a previous injury, which made her super easy to identify. The body belonged to 15-year-old Kristen French.
15. So just to clarify, all of these awful, terrible rapes are happening. And now these young women underneath the same demographic are showing up dead and mutilated or murdered and mutilated.
Yes.
Awful.
So Kristen was reported missing 2 weeks earlier on April 16th.
2 weeks.
She actually left a shoe behind in a church parking lot where a witness saw 2 people forcing the girl into a car.
2 people. I don't like this at all.
These 2 murders were being called the schoolgirl murders. The police were able to connect the murders after exhuming Leslie's body and noticing that the bruising was very similar to that of Kristen's. So yet again, another task force was created to try to find the murderer.
At this point in time, do they believe it's 2 separate crimes?
Yes.
People.
Yes.
Okay. So then again, that adds to the terror and the craziness going on in the town. I'm terrified.
So we're going to fast forward a year. And in February of 1993, police found a DNA match for the Scarborough rapist.
Oh,
The DNA belonged to Paul Bernardo.
disgusting, awful turd monster.
Are you ready to get angry?
Oh, yeah.
In 1990, 3 years earlier, Paul was actually questioned twice by the police after 3 people reported that the sketch of the rapist looked like him.
3 people talked to twice, and obviously they let this man's go.
They did not believe he was a suspect, but they collected DNA samples at the time. They collected like a ton of DNA samples from like basically every lead they got, every person they questioned, random men in the community. And DNA was fairly new at the time. So it took a really long time to process because not only was it new, but they had collected so many samples.
Also, for the times, these task forces are doing, besides the letting this man go, doing pretty good. They're connecting the murders, looking at the bruising, they're collecting DNA from everybody. That part is great.
Well, are you about to get even more mad?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Paul was questioned a third time by police in relationship to the schoolgirl murders.
So this guy is just the biggest, worst person ever.
Someone tipped off the police that he was violent and engaged in aggressive sex. The police, once again, dismissed him as a suspect.
Okay. That right there is a huge marker for, and I know people out there like all kinds of stuff, but if someone is reporting that, that means that they probably didn't like what was happening. And that's a big marker for rape. And if she's talking about it with the murders, I don't know why. He obviously puts on a good face or a good show because why the heck are we letting him go, people?
So once his DNA matched as the Scarborough rapist, the police tapped his phone and put him under surveillance.
Okay.
Paul Bernardo was an accountant. In 1987, October of 1987, Paul attended a conference at a hotel in Scarborough where he lived. Karla Homolka was a young woman attending a veterinarian conference at the same hotel. Both Paul and Karla were very attractive, very successful people.
Mm.
So Karla went down to the restaurant with a friend where she ran into Paul. Some sources say that within 20 minutes, they were in Paul's hotel room.
20 minutes.
They bonded well because they both enjoyed engaging in sadomasochism.
Okay. Again, you do you, boo boo, but then you just keep it with people who like that.
Consenting people, please.
Yes. Yes.
After this, they are inseparable. They ended up dating and moved into Karla's parents' house. And then on February 1st, 1991, they moved into a house in Port Dallouise. They were married on June 29th, 1991, on Niagara on the Lake.
June 29th, 1991?
That date might sound familiar because that was the same date that
The
Leslie's
rapist,
body
right.
was found.
Oh, the body was found.
The body
Yes.
was found. On the wedding night, Paul tells Karla that he is a sex offender that the police are trying to find.
The wedding night.
On the wedding night.
Can you imagine? I don't even want to, but getting married and it's your wedding night and you get a bomb dropped on you like that.
No,
But also, Karla, run, girl.
that's not what Karla does. We'll get into that.
God.
But for Paul, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Paul's father was a convicted child molester who abused his own daughter.
So he saw it his whole life. Oh, that's just traumatic and awful and a lot to unpack.
So we are now in January of 1993, and Karla arrives at the hospital severely beaten. She had been hit in the head hard enough with a metal flashlight to cause raccoon eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Raccoon eyes happens when there is a head trauma and dark bruises form around your eyes. These bruises are like purple, like bright purple. And the picture of her actually gave me a stomach ache. It's really, really bad.
Oh, I don't even want to see it.
This reminded me, though, do you remember in the book Educated when the mom gets a head injury and she has raccoon eyes?
Yeah.
They never take her to the doctor for it.
Such an awful, if you have not read that book, you definitely should, but awful.
Karla had also been stabbed with a screwdriver.
A screwdriver?
She leaves Paul and contacts a divorce lawyer.
Oh, okay. So she's saying Paul's the one doing this.
So this was in January 1993. Remember, in February 1993 is when the police make the DNA match. So the police contact Karla about Paul. And at first, Karla is not cooperative with police at all. She eventually asks for a plea deal that if she testifies against him, she would be granted immunity.
Okay. So that right there, you're involved, girl. Because why would you even ask that if you weren't involved?
The police say, hell nah.
Good.
But we'll talk about a reduced sentence.
Ugh.
Karla was interrogated for 4 days. She talked in detail about Kristen and Leslie's kidnapping and deaths. Paul, meanwhile, was very uncooperative with police. He did soon find out that Karla was talking to the police and was enraged at the betrayal.
You're both idiots. Like, what do you expect if you're both doing idiotic, terrible things?
So Karla comes forward and talks about the kidnappings. Paul had taken Leslie directly from her backyard.
Chills.
He brought her home, very proud of himself. And Paul and Leslie were drinking champagne when Karla walked in, and she was furious. In her interrogation, she talks like a lot about how they had gone to Paris and bought these like very expensive champagne flutes, and Paul never let them drink out of him. But she walks in, and Paul and Leslie are drinking champagne out of these glasses.
Also, I am very irritated with this woman that she makes it sound like, oh, they're just having this conversation, drinking champagne. Like, Paul kidnapped this little girl and probably is either A, forcing her to drink this champagne, or B, trying to be like, oh, I'm friendly. Ah. You know what I mean? And she's sitting here like, oh, I walked in and they were drinking champagne out of my wine glasses. That's your concern, you crazy lady.
You will see that Karla tries to downplay these situations a lot.
That makes me so flippin' mad because you can't downplay when you can help your husband kidnap, I'm assuming rape and murder a young woman.
As Karla started talking to Leslie, Paul came up behind her with a rag with halothane on it, which halothane is a anesthetic, so it puts you to sleep,
Okay.
and knocked Leslie out. Together, they held Leslie for 24 hours, drugging her, torturing her, and raping her.
As a human, how do you do that? As a man, how do you do that? As a woman, how do you stand behind someone and help do that? How do two evil people like that find each other? I just am disgusted.
They would give Leslie a teddy bear in between assaults.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to make it feel better? That's actually disgusting and creepy. And also, this is all from Carla's point of view, right?
Yes.
So she's like, oh, I was just talking and then he chloroformed her or whatever, antiseptic her. Girl, if you're doing all this, there was more of your involvement there. Come on.
They eventually strangle her to death with an electric cord. They then dismember her, put her body parts in concrete, and disposed of the body at the lake.
Just, hey, let's kidnap someone and do this. Okay.
Kristen was next, and she was abducted on her way home from school. Karla and Paul stopped and asked Kristen for directions. Karla coaxes Kristen to the car, where Paul comes up behind her with a knife and forces her into the car.
So now she's involved with the, oh, let me help you this time.
Karla says on the drive home, she sat in the back seat with her and held her head down so no one could see her.
I'm angry.
They ended up holding Kristen for 3 days. Again, torturing her, raping her, and forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol.
What the heck? And that's so sad for them and their families that that's their end times was like that. No one deserves that.
No. Our BFF Karla over here said that it really hurt her to have to murder the girls.
Get out of here.
She considered them friends, and they would talk and put makeup on together when Paul was out.
One, I have no belief in that whatsoever. Two, I don't do that kind of things to my friends. So they're not your little friends, Karla. You have this sick, wrapped vision of the world, and it's disgusting.
Again, we are downplaying what happened to the highest level.
Yes, you're vicious
we hung
acts.
out and we talked. We had girl talk. We did our makeup.
How'd you do makeup if you're beating their faces in like that? How'd you put freaking foundation on that? Come on.
Karla told police that she was an unwilling participant in the murders. She told the police about how Paul also abused her, and she claimed that he raped and tortured her just like he did to the girls. Karla struck a deal with police for a reduced 12-year sentence.
12 years.
12 years. As part of the trial, Karla underwent a psychiatric assessment where she confessed in their involvement in her little sister Tammy's death.
She killed her little sister Tammy with her husband, her rapist, creepy husband. And she's a rapist, creepy girl as well. But they killed her little sister.
Are you ready to get into it? Paul was very upset that Karla was not a virgin when they met. So he decided that he wanted to take her younger sister, Tammy, who was 15, he wanted to take her virginity.
What? This is before they were married, pre-marriage?
Karla agreed as a Christmas present to Paul.
A Christmas present.
This
I'm
was
gonna
her
be sick.
Christmas present to Paul. During a family dinner, they drugged Tammy's drinks with an animal tranquilizer that Karla got from the vet's office.
Karla, you were terrible from the beginning then.
Karla participated and videotaped the entire thing.
She videotaped her sister's rape.
Once the abuse had ended, Tammy began to choke on her own vomit from overdosing on the drugs, the animal tranquilizers. When they could not revive her, they cleaned her up, hid the tape, and called an ambulance. She had a burn mark on her face. When the EMTs asked about this burn, Paul said it was carpet burn from when he had to drag her body up from the basement stairs. The burn on her face was actually caused by halothane, which was put on a cloth over her mouth.
What they used on the other victims as well.
Tammy's family was asleep in the house the entire time.
Ew. Ew.
Once Tammy was at the hospital, she was declared dead, and the hospital was told that Tammy had drank too much and vomited in her sleep and choked on it.
I honestly feel like I could be sick. Like, I'm not even kidding. That's the most evil thing I've ever heard. And then it also makes me question. I wonder if them like stealing these other women and doing what they did was recreating this time.
Well, you're about to get even sicker.
Oh, great.
After the death of her sister, Karla would dress in her sister's clothes to turn on Paul.
I literally can't. No words.
Once they got away with the murder, Paul wanted more. And this
Yep.
is where they began abducting young girls.
This is when sometimes I think that, like, and I know Paul had a rough childhood, but like people are born evil because that's something unimaginable, unthinkable in the cruelest ways. Were both born evil and unfortunately found each other and wreaked havoc on a bunch of people's lives, not only their victims, but their victims' families and friends and loved ones. So they can both poo off.
On July 6th, 1993, Karla was sentenced to 12 years, in which many people called a deal with the devil.
Yeah, I agree.
Over a year after Karla was sentenced, videotapes of the three girls' rape, torture, and murder were turned over to the police.
So they videotaped it all.
Paul's old lawyer had collected the videos from his hiding spot. He didn't initially turn them over to police. In these videos, it seems that Karla was a willing participant and even seemed to enjoy herself. The lawyer actually ended up getting charged with obstruction of justice, but was acquitted. And the public was outraged at all of this, obviously, when it came out.
I agree, but I was wondering if it's the lawyer. I know there's all those different like rules. Like, are they able to keep that? I don't know.
No. Karla was released on July 4th, 2005.
I was hoping that she messed up in jail or something and never got out or saw the light of day. I can't even believe you're sitting here telling me that she got out. What day again? I'm sorry.
July 4th, 2005.
Flippin' Independence Day.
She now lives in Quebec with her husband,
No.
who is her lawyer's brother, and their 3 children.
She has 3 children.
With her lawyer's brother.
With her lawyer's brother, who obviously knows what happened and seen the videos and decided that let's make babies. And all I can do is pray for these children that they're not. If she's doing it to her sister, Alexis, I don't think it's beyond her to be abusive to her children. You know what I mean? So I cannot believe that. I have bellyache issues right now. This is a terrible one.
Paul admitted to kidnapping, drugging, and raping the girls, but claimed that Karla was the one who killed them.
No
Paul's
matter what, you're
trial
both terrible. I'm sorry.
Paul's trial lasted 4 months.
4 months.
Karla was on the stand for 17 days.
I hope she was miserable as can be. I hope the questions were awful. Good, good. I hope she was tortured up there.
Paul was sentenced to life in prison. He, of course, tried to appeal, but his appeal was denied. He became eligible for parole in 2018, but his parole was denied.
This man was eligible for parole, though. What a
He is
joke.
he is currently incarcerated at Millhaven Maximum Security Prison. And because these people were very attractive people and very successful, they have been dubbed the Barbie and Ken killers.
Which they probably love, to be honest. I am disgusted that that woman is out living a life with children. I'm disgusted that that man was even eligible for parole. I am disgusted by this whole flipping situation.
So in Canada, they actually have like at a life sentence after 25 years, you are eligible for parole. It's just different than the United States.
I feel like it's problematic, Canada. And everyone always says you're so nice and peaceful. Come on.
That's why they're nice and peaceful.
Yeah, but this disgusting man.
I mean, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you're getting out.
That's true. And he didn't. And he did
You
not.
have to prove that you're not dangerous to society anymore. And he's obviously probably going to be dangerous to society for the rest of his life.
But that's what makes me mad about this chick because she's a freaking danger to society as well.
Oh, yeah.
And this lawyer's brother has some screws loose because he does. Because there's some dangers to society there.
Yeah.
Who dates someone that's dangerous to or marries someone who he knows is a
Raped
danger to
and
society.
killed women? Yeah.
Yeah. And probably seen if the brother is the lawyer, the brother's seen those videos. That's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that Thanksgiving.
Stop.
I'm serious. That's sick. Ugh. I feel like I need a palate cleanser. That was awful. That was the worst episode yet.
You want to hear a joke?
Yes.
What do you call a dinosaur who can't drive?
What?
A Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm just trying to offer a palate cleanser. This was a very rough one. I'm very happy I'm done with it. I was actually listening to another podcast, not a true crime podcast, Thread Talk podcast. Shout out to Thread Talk podcast. It's amazing.
Woo-hoo.
I love it. It's one of the podcasts where they read like Reddit stories on it. And she had just like mentioned in passing the Barbie and Ken killers because they're from Canada. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of know about them. That would be a good one to do for the pod. And then I got into it and I was like, ooh, I forgot how bad this one is.
I know. I don't know how you researched it. Did you have to like watch something funny or something afterwards?
Yeah, I did it. Usually I do most of my research in like a big chunk. And then like I sit down the next day and put it into like more of a cohesive document. But I did this one over like 3 to 4 days.
Oh, you would have to take breaks.
Yeah.
And they're just, oh, that's so awful. And it's just so sad that, again, that those poor girls and the poor families and the how evil people can be. And
yeah, there's also a 4-part documentary on a lot of streaming platforms. I was going to watch it, but I couldn't do 4 parts. But I did watch on Amazon Prime. There's a show called Confessions of a Serial Killer. And season 2, episode 8 is about this case. And they break it down. I really liked how they break it down. It's only a 45-minute episode. And they have like different experts on that kind of talk about different things to like kind of break it up. And I really enjoyed that episode.
so definitely go watch it if you're intrigued by this. I feel like I never want to hear Barbie and Ken killers, murderers in my life ever again. Like that leaves me with such a bad feeling. Ugh.
Well, Sam had to listen. She had no choice. But if you're still around for this one, thank you for listening. Just a reminder, please give us a follow on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Podbean. And on your whatever podcast platform you're listening to, please give us a review and make sure you are subscribed so you're downloading our episodes because that helps us a ton.
Woo! Send us an email with a case suggestion just to say hi Again, if you have a true crime story, we would love to see like how the baddies have experienced crime. Maybe make an episode on that to bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com. Don't forget our intro music is made by Cousin Vinny. I do believe he has new music coming soon, Lex.
I saw that today. It was a
Ooh.
little teaser.
I'm very excited, and you should be too, baddies.
Cousin Vinny is on Instagram at Cousin Vinny, and it's VINNIEE.
Everyone should go follow him too. Tell a friend, tell someone, and tune in next week for hopefully, well, I mean, they're not digestible. Tune in next week for a me episode, a Sam episode.
Well, until next time.
Do your reformations. What are they called?
Oh, yeah. Do your reappraisals.
Reappraisals, especially after that episode. Say like positive things and positive energy in your life, everybody. We hope the
And
best.
don't say anything about yourself that you wouldn't say about your best friend.
Love it. Yes. We love you, baddies. Thank you for listening to us.
Bye, 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 bye.